make sure she can count all 5 of you. Okay.
Sound up. One.
I think stripes made me look fat this way.
Alright. We as people in the 21st century live an easy life. As the ages of electricity and the internet have come to pass, once difficult tasks are now done with relative ease. Take, for example, the carpet sweeping job of a servant's maid in the 1900s. As depicted in Sarah Warwick's book, Upstairs, Downstairs, she quotes, "The carpets had to be laboriously cleaned with a stiff brush or carpet sweeper, often after being scattered with tea leaves to mask bad odors." Yes, we living in the modern time often take for granted the joys of high-powered vacuums, indoor plumbing, and laundry machines. But one of the easiest things that we take for granted is our non-dependence on caste system societies. Through various research outlets, such as the book I just mentioned and the documentary reality show Manor House, as well as various websites, I have gained a clear perspective as to what life would have been like in a 20th century grand house. The Edwardian class system was successful because of its strict adherence to hierarchical rules. I will support this analysis with 3 points. Firstly, life in the downstairs world required its occupants to be hardworking, diligent, and invisible to the upstairs world. Secondly, a life in the upstairs required its occupants to be very lavish in their wealth, as well as adhere to very strict hierarchical rules. And lastly, the occupants and workers in an Edwardian-style household had a complicated relationship. Firstly, I will explain how life in the downstairs required its occupants to be hardworking, diligent, and invisible to the upstairs world. When accepting the job as a servant, one's freedom was taken away. In the documentary Manor House, 15 volunteers come together and try to live life as what it would have been like in the 1900s. According to the documentary, life as a servant was often a decent job. With a roof over your head, 3 meals a day, as well as a decent employer, it was the second most popular job of its time. Downsides, however, included strict rules as to when one was able to go upstairs. Your friends and family were not allowed to come on the premise, and as long as you were employed, you were not allowed to get married nor have any relations with the opposite sex. Another condition a servant had to contend with was working in hard conditions. Take, for example, the servant description of the lowest working female servant, the scullery maid, in Sarah Warwick's book. Largely confined to the small room off the kitchen, known as the scullery maid's lot was not an easy one. Her chief duties included scrubbing pots for up to 18 hours a day. These long hours were pretty consistent with most of the staff of the day. As I will show in the video right here, most of the time for servants, their only time of solitude and free time was walking to and from church.
Lower-ranking maids now face a 2-mile walk back to the house, and they're awaiting chores. Taking in the air to and from church was sometimes the servant's only escape from the drudgery of life in the house.
This is like our time off.
Our
to church is your time off. Morning off, walking to church, and back. And then to carry on with our chores. They're not just carry on, catch up on the chores you haven't done on your morning off, walking to church.
Do you reckon we're going to get into that? So again, this was a short clip from the Manor House documentary. Contrastingly to the hard life of a downstairs worker, those being served were often resented for their posh lifestyle. Life in the upstairs of a wealthy grand house required its occupants to be very lavish in their spending, as well as adhere to strict hierarchical rules. Firstly, everyday life, from how to exit a room to the topic of conversation, was tinted with hierarchical rule. For instance, according to the website that accompanies the Manor House documentary, when your butler announces dinner, lords and ladies are to rise in strict order of precedence. Gentlemen should offer their arms to ladies and then exit in a ceremonious manner in twos. You should ensure that everything is organized as to not offend your guests. Secondly, to stay in the height of popularity, lords and ladies would host large parties and events to display their prosperity, elegance, and generosity. These parties would entail much work on the staff side as well as the occupants in the upstairs world. Meals and wines had to complement each other, and even the decorations had to complement the attendees' outfits. As shown in this book, this is Sarah Warwick's book, Upstairs Downstairs. This is a painting as what the meal would entail, and the description up here states that a typical society dinner menu for 20 people cost approximately 60 francs, easily twice the annual salary of a housemaid. It would consist of around 8 courses, often with a number of choices for each course. Living in a world where rank was constantly evident and the differences of wealth was obviously apparent, conflicts between class was constant. Because the occupants and workers in a grand house during the Edwardian period had a very complicated relationship. Because of the hierarchical nature of the life in the Edwardian period was so intense, even menial tasks such as walking past each other in the hallway was a cause for precedence. For example, in the Manor House documentary, a maid was cleaning the stairwells one day when the lady of the house walked by. The maid immediately stopped what she was doing, turned to the corner of the room, and put her head down. This severe reaction was due to one of the house rules that dictates that any member of the servant staff must make themselves invisible as to not cause embarrassment when the master was around. In contradiction to this rule, however, the presence of higher staff were very close to the masters of the home. For the butler, for example, was often the sole confidant that the lord of the home could rely and confide in. Giving updates to friends and family, they were often very close. Likewise, ladies of the home were very close to their lady's maid. Sharing gossip and tales of woe, they often became thick as thieves. Though the lower staff seems to have no connection with the upper staff whatsoever, the one exception was the children of the home, who were the only members of the family allowed to enter the downstairs realm. Because the children of these large grand homes could only see their families an hour a day during child time, then most of their time was spent with their nannies, tutors, or with the downstairs staff. In conclusion, because of the hard life a servant was exposed to, a servant's character must be strong and resilient. Life in an upstairs world, though posh in comparison to those in the downstairs, still had a tiring adherence to hierarchical rules. And hovering between comparisons and slaves, servants and master relations is complicated and hard to describe. Although the harsh and unfair system of the Edwardian era would not work in today's society, it was successful in the 20th century because of its occupants' blind and strict adherence to rules. By the year 1914, however, this time of extreme spending and extreme servitude would soon come to its end. With almost an entire generation enlisted to fight in World War I, the ways of Victorian and Edwardian eras would soon come to an end as many of its workers, as many industrial jobs would open up, much money would be lost, and many servants and women's rights came to its climax. Summarized nicely in the beginning paragraphs of Warwick's book, Upstairs Downstairs, Warwick quotes, "The codependency of these groups living side by side and relying on one another was what made country house living successful, but it was also what brought it to its knees. With servants finding other means of employment, masters losing their money, as well as servants unwilling to work in such conditions, the strict rule of precedence and rank would soon become something of the past." Thank you. Don't stop it. Maybe to see the thing.
Yeah.
Oh.